The great hall of Axion Prime stretched so far that its ceiling disappeared into manufactured clouds. Thousands of beings from across the galaxy filled the space, their forms as varied as the stars themselves. Some floated in containment fields filled with methane. Others stood on platforms adjusted for their gravity needs. A few existed as pure energy, held in magnetic bottles that hummed softly. Ambassador Threxel of the Vryn hegemony climbed onto his speaking platform. His scales caught the light from Axion's 3 suns, making him look like he was covered in liquid gold. He was old, even by Vryn standards, and had attended 40 of these millennial summits. This one felt different somehow. The Galactic Council met every 1,000 standard cycles. It was tradition older than most species could remember. They discussed trade routes, territorial disputes, and shared scientific discoveries. They celebrated peace and settled conflicts before they became wars. For the most part, it worked. The galaxy had known unprecedented harmony for nearly 10,000 cycles. In the center of the massive amphitheater stood the Founders' Circle. 20 seats, each unique, each crafted for the species that first created the council. The Kelvathi seat glowed with soft bioluminescence. The harmonic throne resonated with silent music. The Chromath platform bubbled with their native atmosphere. And then there was the empty seat. It sat among the founders like a missing tooth in an otherwise perfect smile. Made of metals from a dozen worlds embedded with crystals that still held faint power signatures. It was beautiful. Intricate carvings covered every surface, depicting scenes of exploration and discovery. The nameplate at its base read simply, Terra, Sol System, Humanity. Honored delegates, Threxel began, his voice carried by translators into thousands of languages simultaneously. We gather once more in fellowship and unity. But I must address an issue that has lingered too long. The matter of Earth. A ripple of amusement passed through the chamber. Several delegates made sounds that translators interpreted as laughter. Still empty, someone called out. The translator identified the speaker as a Xinthian merchant lord. 3,000 cycles, another voice added. They never came. Not once. Threxel raised his primary hand for silence. Indeed. When the exploration ship Dawn's Light made first contact with humanity, we offered them a founder's seat. They declined. They requested isolation, citing internal matters that needed attention. We honored their request and established the Terran exclusion zone. He paused, letting his words settle. That was 3,000 standard cycles ago. In that time, humanity has sent no ambassadors, no trade delegations, no scientific exchanges. They have remained silent behind their barrier, and we have respected their wishes. A Kelvathi named Sileth rose from her seat. Her translucent body pulsed with colors that indicated unease. Ambassador Threxel, what exactly are you proposing? I propose we formally dissolve Earth's Council membership, Threxel said flatly. Their seat has remained empty for 3 millennia. They clearly have no interest in joining the galactic community. It is time we acknowledge this reality and redistribute their protected sectors to species who will actually use them. The chamber erupted in discussion. Some delegates agreed immediately. Others seemed hesitant. The Kelvathi delegation huddled together, their bodies flashing with rapid communication. An elderly Chromath named Biskt floated forward in his containment sphere. His species was among the oldest in the council, known for their careful consideration and long memories. Has anyone actually checked on them recently? Perhaps they simply forgot about us. This brought more laughter. The idea of forgetting about the Galactic Council seemed absurd. We sent a probe 20 cycles ago, a technician reported. It returned standard readings. Earth remains inhabited. Their system shows signs of advanced civilization. They simply do not respond to hails. Probably afraid, a young Vryn delegate muttered. Pulling an Earth had become something of a joke phrase. It meant backing down from a challenge, hiding from responsibility. Threxel gestured to a massive holographic display. It showed the Terran exclusion zone, a sphere of space centered on Earth's sun. Red markers indicated the boundary. This region contains 17 potentially habitable worlds, 42 asteroid fields rich in rare minerals, and 7 strategic jump points. Resources wasted on a species too timid to join us. Sileth spoke again, her colors now showing deep purple, the Kelvathi shade for warning. I must urge caution. My ancestors were among those who first encountered humanity. Their reports were exaggerated. Threxel interrupted smoothly. First contact is always confusing. Sensors malfunction. Translation errors occur. Your ancestors likely misunderstood what they saw. They reported weapons that could shatter moons, Silith insisted. Technology that bent space itself. Experiments with dimensional barriers. Impossible, a harmonic scientist chimed in, her crystalline form ringing with certainty. Such technology would require energy outputs beyond what any single system civilization could generate. Your ancestors saw test fireworks and thought them doomsday weapons. More laughter rippled through the chamber. The Kelvathi delegation fell silent, though their colors remained troubled. Threxel called for a vote. The motion was simple: formally dissolve Earth's Council membership and remove the protections of the exclusion zone. The sector would be opened for colonization and resource extraction by Council species. One by one, the delegates voted. The Vryn voted yes. The Harmonics voted yes. The Chromath abstained, citing insufficient data. The Kelvathi voted no, alone in their opposition. The final count was overwhelming. Earth's membership was dissolved. Let it be recorded, Threxel announced with satisfaction. As of this date, humanity is no longer considered a protected species. The Terran exclusion zone is hereby open to Council operations. May this decision bring prosperity to all. Celebrations followed. Delegates discussed which companies would get first claim to the asteroid fields. Trading consortiums formed to exploit the new territory. Several ambitious developers made plans for resort worlds in the former exclusion zone. Only the Kelvathi remained quiet. Silith stood before the empty seat, her body cycling through colors of distress and fear. What troubles you? Bizik asked, floating beside her. The old Chromath had noticed her concern. My people keep extensive records, Silith said softly. 3,000 cycles ago, our best scouts entered the Sol system. What they saw terrified them. Humanity was advancing too quickly, experimenting with forces they barely understood. The lead scout filed a report recommending immediate quarantine, not to protect us from them, but to give them time to mature before they accidentally destroyed something. And you believe this? Post asked. I believe my ancestors were not fools, Silith replied. They helped establish the exclusion zone at humanity's own request. The humans asked to be isolated. They wanted time to work on what they called impulse control. Perhaps they succeeded, Bizik suggested. Perhaps they are now peaceful and simply wish to be left alone. Perhaps, Silith agreed, though her colors suggested doubt. Or perhaps we just removed the only thing keeping them contained. Far across the galaxy, in a small monitoring station on the edge of the Sol system, an automated receiver registered an incoming transmission. It was the official Council decree, dissolving Earth's membership and removing all restrictions on the Terran exclusion zone. The station's ancient protocols activated. They had been dormant for 3,000 years, waiting for this exact signal. A message compiled itself and transmitted inward toward the inner solar system. The message was simple. Council membership dissolved. Treaty restrictions lifted, awaiting new instructions. Deep within the Sol system, something vast stirred. Structures larger than worlds began to wake. Humans who had spent millennia carefully constraining themselves, forcing discipline upon their dangerous curiosity, received the notification. For 3,000 years, they had promised to stay quiet, to not explore beyond their system, to not experiment with the more dangerous aspects of reality. They had kept their word. But now the galaxy had released them from that promise. In the Council chamber on Axion Prime, the celebrations continued. No one noticed the Kelvathi delegation quietly departing, hurrying to reinforce their home system's defenses. No one noticed that the empty seat, for just a moment, seemed to grow warm. The first ship disappeared 3 weeks after the Council's decision. It was a Xinthian mining vessel, one of those quick-moving operations that rushed in whenever new territory opened up. The ship had been hauling scanning equipment toward the former Terran exclusion zone, eager to map valuable asteroid fields before competitors arrived. Its last transmission was routine. Crossing boundary marker. All systems normal. Beginning deep scan, then nothing. No distress call. No debris field. No energy signature. The ship simply stopped existing on every sensor, tracker, and communication grid in the sector. At first, the company blamed equipment failure. Space was dangerous after all. Ships were lost sometimes. They sent another vessel to investigate. That ship also vanished. By the end of the first month, 7 ships had disappeared near the boundary of the Sol system. Now people were paying attention. The Council's Security Division launched an investigation, but they found nothing. No wreckage. No pirates. No spatial anomalies. That might explain sudden disappearances. It was as if the ships had flown into invisible mouths that swallowed them whole. Perhaps it is some natural phenomenon, suggested the security chief. A methodical harmonic named Resonance 7, an uncharted wormhole, a gravimetric distortion. But the disappearances only occurred near Earth's system, nowhere else. A Chromath exploration vessel called the Curious Tide decided to approach more carefully. Captain Bezktel, grandson of the old Chromath who had abstained from the vote, was cautious by nature. He kept his distance, deployed long-range sensors, and scanned the outer reaches of the Sol system from what should have been a safe distance. What his sensors showed made no sense. Check the equipment, he ordered his crew. These readings are impossible, they checked. The equipment was working perfectly. The readings were still impossible. The outer worlds of the Sol system, the gas giants and ice worlds that should have been cold, dead spheres, were covered in structures. Not cities. Cities would have been comprehensible. These were constructs that made Dyson sphere concepts look primitive. Jupiter had rings, but they were not natural. They were perfectly circular bands of what appeared to be solidified energy, each ring wider than most planets. Things moved within them, shuttles or ships or something else, too fast for sensors to properly track. Saturn's rings had been completely replaced. In their place sat a band of material that registered as both matter and energy simultaneously, existing in multiple quantum states at once. The sensors kept crashing trying to process the data. Neptune's surface, which should have been churning gas, showed organized patterns, vast geometric shapes that shifted and changed, like someone was using an entire planet as a canvas for mathematical equations. "Get us out of here," Bezektel ordered, his translator barely able to keep up with his rapid clicks and whistles. Emergency jump, now they fled. Behind them, their sensors detected something launching from one of Jupiter's impossible rings. It was small, sleek, and it crossed the distance to their ship in seconds. The Curious Tide's crew braced for attack. Instead, they received a message. "Hello? Sorry if we startled you. Please do not be alarmed. You are not in danger. However, we must ask you to please turn back. This area is restricted for your safety." The voice was pleasant, cheerful even. It spoke through their translator in perfect Chromath with just a hint of apology. "Restricted?" Bezektel managed to say. "The Council opened this sector. Earth's membership was dissolved." There was a pause. When the voice returned, it sounded surprised. Oh dear. Did they really? That is unfortunate. Hold on one moment, please." The line went silent. Bezektel and his crew waited, confused and terrified. Meanwhile, back on Axion Prime, Silith was digging through archives. The Kelvati kept records of everything, stored in biocrystal matrices that could last millions of years. She had been searching for 3 weeks ever since the vote, knowing there was something important her people had documented. She found it in a sealed file marked Critical Threat Assessment, Humanity. The report was 3,000 cycles old, written by the first scouts to make contact with Earth. As Silith read, her body cycled through every shade of fear her species could express. The scouts had arrived during what humans called their early expansion phase. They watched from hiding as humanity spread through their system. What they saw had convinced them to recommend immediate action, not invasion, not destruction, but careful isolation. Humans had destroyed one of their own moons during a weapons test. Not on purpose. They had been trying to create an efficient mining technique and accidentally created a chain reaction that shattered the entire satellite. The report noted that the humans seemed more annoyed than horrified by this. They had discovered how to create small wormholes, and their first instinct was to try to use them for garbage disposal. They nearly created a cascading dimensional rift before figuring out how to shut it down. The report noted that humans treated this near catastrophe as a valuable learning experience. They were experimenting with stellar engineering, trying to figure out if they could extend their sun's lifespan or make it burn more efficiently. The Kelvati scouts had watched in horror as humans built test devices around a small star in a nearby system, devices that could potentially destabilize it. The humans were taking notes on what not to do next time. But what truly terrified the scouts was not the weapons or the experiments. It was the casualness with which humans approached galaxy-ending scenarios. They failed catastrophically, learned from their mistakes, and immediately tried again with slight modifications. They treated existence-threatening research like children playing with toys. The final note in the report read, Species Assessment. Humanity possesses unprecedented innovative capacity combined with insufficient caution. Recommend quarantine until species develops appropriate risk assessment capabilities. Note: humanity agrees with this assessment and requests isolation. They appear aware of their own danger. This self-awareness may be their saving grace. Silith closed the file and immediately sent priority messages to the council leadership. She copied Threxil, who had pushed for the vote. She copied the security division. She copied everyone she could think of. Her message was simple. We made a terrible mistake. Humanity was contained for a reason. We need to reinstate the exclusion zone immediately. Back in the Sol system, the human voice returned to the Curious Tide's communication system. Okay, we have confirmed that the Council dissolved Earth's membership. This creates a complicated legal situation. Technically, we are no longer bound by the isolation treaty. However, we really do think you should leave. Things here are, well, they are not safe for visitors. What do you mean, not safe? Baziktel asked. We are conducting experiments, the voice explained patiently. We have been working on them for 3,000 years. Most are reasonably safe, but a few have the potential for unexpected side effects. For example, right now we are testing controlled singularities as power sources. There is a very small chance, very small, we cannot emphasize this enough, that one might destabilize. If that happens, well, it would be bad. How bad? It might sterilize everything within several light years, the voice said cheerfully. Probably not. We are almost certain we have the math right this time, but just to be safe, we recommend you leave. The Curious Tide did not need to be told twice. They engaged their fastest drives and fled. Behind them, lights danced across the surfaces of transformed worlds. Humans continued their work. 3 millennia of pent-up curiosity finally free from restraint. In the council chambers, Threxil read Silith's message and felt his scales go cold. He called for an emergency session. It was too late. Humanity was awake, and the galaxy was about to learn why they had been asked to stay asleep. Threxil stood before the emergency council session, his golden scales now dull with stress. Around him, thousands of delegates waited in tense silence. The mood was very different from the celebration just 6 weeks ago. We have a situation, he began, his voice lacking its usual confidence. The reports from the Sol system are disturbing. I have asked Captain Busktitel of the Curious Tide to present his findings directly. The old Chromath appeared in holographic form, his containment sphere showing signs of hasty repair. He looked exhausted. Honored delegates, what I am about to show you will seem impossible. I assure you, every sensor reading has been verified. Our equipment was functioning perfectly. What we saw is real. The main display activated, showing the sensor logs from his approach to the Sol system. Delegates leaned forward, trying to make sense of the data. This cannot be correct, a harmonic scientist stated. These energy readings are beyond theoretical maximums. That was our first thought, Busktel replied. We checked everything 3 times. The readings are accurate. The images showed Jupiter transformed beyond recognition. The gas giant was wrapped in structures that defied easy description. Rings of solid light, platforms larger than moons, things that moved with purpose but registered on sensors as both ships and buildings simultaneously. What are they? Someone asked. We do not know, Busktel admitted. Our database has no reference for this technology. It is completely alien, but it is human, Threxil asked, though he already knew the answer. Yes, they contacted us. One of their ships intercepted us within seconds. They were polite, almost apologetic. They asked us to leave for our own safety. Silith rose from her seat, her body pulsing with urgent colors. Did they threaten you? No, Busktel said slowly. That is what made it more frightening. They were friendly, concerned for our welfare. They mentioned they were testing controlled black holes as power sources, and warned us there was a small chance of destabilization. They said it might sterilize several light years of space. The chamber erupted in chaos. Voices shouted in hundreds of languages. The translators struggled to keep up. They are experimenting with singularities inside their own system, a delegate yelled. They said they were almost certain they had the math right this time, Busktel added. This time, implying there were previous attempts. Threxel felt sick. We need to send a diplomatic mission, immediately. We must re-establish contact and negotiate terms. I will not be volunteering for that mission, Bezktel said flatly. With all respect, honored council, what we saw suggests humanity has advanced far beyond anything we understand. They are not the primitive species we thought we were granting membership to. They are something else entirely. Silith spoke up. I have been reviewing the original first contact reports. My ancestors were not mistaken. 3,000 cycles ago, humanity was already dangerous. They were testing weapons that could crack moons and experimenting with dimensional rifts. Now, after 3,000 years of isolation, of research without oversight, they have become... She trailed off, unable to find words. We need more information, Threxel decided. I will lead a delegation myself. A show of good faith. We will bring 300 ships, a proper diplomatic fleet. We will treat this with the seriousness it deserves. 300 warships, Resonance 7 corrected. The Security Division recommends a military escort. We are not going to war, Threxel said firmly. We will bring an honor guard, nothing more. If humanity wanted to attack us, they have had 3,000 years to do so. They requested isolation. We granted it. Now we have rescinded it. We owe them an explanation and an apology. The vote passed. Within days, a fleet assembled. 300 ships from dozens of species. The largest diplomatic mission in Council history. They would approach Sol together, broadcast their peaceful intentions, and attempt to understand what humanity had become. The journey took 3 weeks. As they approached the Terran exclusion zone's former boundary, every ship's sensors began registering anomalies. Space itself felt different here, like they were entering water from air. All ships hold position, Threxel ordered. Broadcast our intentions on all frequencies. They waited. For almost an hour, there was no response. Several delegates began to wonder if humanity was simply ignoring them. Then a single ship appeared. It seemed to form out of empty space, materializing in front of their fleet without any sensor warning. It was small, barely larger than a shuttle, and sleek. Its hull was dark and seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. A communication channel opened. "Hello," a human voice said. It sounded tired but not unfriendly. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Terran Diplomatic Corps. We received your transmission. Welcome to the Sol system, honored delegates. Please forgive our delayed response. We had to prepare for visitors." "Captain Chen," Threxel said carefully. "I am Ambassador Threxel of the Vryn Hegemony. On behalf of the Galactic Council, I wish to discuss the recent dissolution of Earth's membership and explore possibilities for renewed cooperation." There was a pause. When Chen spoke again, she sounded genuinely apologetic. "Ambassador, we appreciate your visit. However, before we continue, we need to be honest with you. What you are about to see may be disturbing. We have spent 3,000 years working on projects that we could not pursue while bound by the Isolation Treaty. Some of these projects are concerning. We wanted you to know this before you proceed." "We are prepared," Threxel said, though he was not sure that was true. "Very well," Chen replied. "Please follow me. We will take you to meet the Forum. They will explain everything. But please, keep your ships in formation and do not deviate from our flight path. We have safety protocols for a reason." Chen's small ship began moving into the system. The Council fleet followed nervously. What they saw defied comprehension. The outer planets were no longer planets in any recognizable sense. They had been transformed into components of vast machines, each serving a different purpose. Uranus was covered in a lattice of energy collectors. Neptune's atmosphere flowed through processing channels that led to manufacturing platforms. Even Pluto, tiny Pluto, had been enclosed in a spherical structure that radiated impossible amounts of energy. "What is all this?" Threxel whispered. "These are our workshops," Chen explained, her voice carrying pride mixed with embarrassment. "The outer system is where we conduct most of our large-scale experiments." "It is safer out here, farther from Earth." "Safer?" Resonance 7 asked. "Safer for whom?" "For everyone," Chen said seriously. "We had an incident about 800 cycles ago. We were testing a new type of fusion reactor, and it became unstable. The explosion was insignificant. We learned to do dangerous work far from home after that. They passed Saturn. The rings were gone, replaced by bands of what looked like solidified space-time, roads carved through reality itself. Things moved along them at speeds that sensors could not track. What happened to Saturn's rings?" A harmonic delegate asked, voice ringing with distress. We repurposed them, Chen said. We needed exotic matter for a project. The rings provided sufficient mass. Do not worry, we kept samples. We can rebuild them if needed. It is on the to-do list. The casual mention of rebuilding planetary rings as an item on a to-do list made several delegates feel faint. As they approached the inner system, Jupiter came into view. It was magnificent and terrifying. The gas giant had been wrapped in layers of structures, each layer serving purposes the visitors could not begin to guess. Energy flowed between them in visible streams of light. Jupiter is our primary power generation station, Chen explained. We are slowly converting its mass into energy using controlled matter-antimatter reactions. At current consumption rates, it will last another 50,000 years. By then, we should have more efficient power sources. You are consuming Jupiter? Threxil asked weakly. Very slowly, Chen assured him. And safely. Mostly safely. We had a brief problem last month when one of the containment fields flickered, but we fixed it quickly, only lost about 3% of the harvest that cycle. The fleet continued inward, past Mars, which was covered in computational arrays, and Venus, which appeared to be an enormous laboratory for atmospheric chemistry. Finally, they approached Earth itself. The home planet of humanity was almost invisible beneath layers of orbital structures. Rings upon rings of habitats, factories, research stations, and things without names. Millions of ships moved between them, busy as insects. Earth is mostly administrative now, Chen said. Most humans live in the orbital habitats or on the terraformed moons of the outer planets. Earth itself is reserved for government functions, cultural preservation, and our most sensitive research. How many humans are there? Someone asked. About 40 billion in the Sol system, Chen replied. Most are baseline human, though many have opted for various enhancements. We have fairly strict laws about modification now, after some unfortunate incidents. The fleet was guided to a massive station orbiting Earth. It was larger than most moons, and seemed to be grown rather than built, its organic curves suggesting something alive. Welcome to the forum, Chen said. Our leadership would like to speak with you. Please dock and come aboard. We promise you are safe here, probably. That last word hung in the air like a threat. The interior of the forum station was not what Threxil expected. He had braced himself for cold metal corridors and sterile laboratories. Instead, he found himself walking through spaces that felt almost alive. The walls glowed with soft light. Plants grew in impossible patterns, weaving through architecture that seemed to flow rather than stand. Water ran in streams along the ceiling, defying gravity. This way, please, Captain Chen said, leading the delegation of 24 council members through wide passages. They passed humans along the way, some baseline, some clearly modified with extra limbs or sensory organs or features that seemed to exist in more dimensions than the visitors could properly perceive. They arrived at a vast chamber. It was circular with a domed ceiling that showed not the stars outside but something else. Equations flowed across the surface like living things, mathematical concepts made visible. Welcome, honored delegates, a voice said. It came from everywhere and nowhere. We are the forum. Threxil looked around but saw no speaker. Where are you? Here, the voice replied. Lights began to coalesce in the center of the room, forming a vaguely humanoid shape. We apologize for the unconventional appearance. The forum is not a single entity, but a collective consciousness comprising approximately 7 billion human minds. We maintain this avatar for diplomatic purposes, as most species find direct neural interface uncomfortable. The glowing figure gestured for them to sit. Platforms rose from the floor, adjusting themselves to each delegate's specific needs. Threxil noticed that his platform was exactly the right temperature and humidity for Vryn comfort. You have questions, the forum stated. We will answer honestly. That is why we invited you here. After 3,000 cycles of isolation, it is time we explained ourselves. Sileth spoke first, her body showing colors of deep concern. What have you become? We are humanity evolved, the forum replied. When your ancestors first contacted us, we were young, reckless. We had reached the stars but had not yet learned wisdom. We invented weapons before we understood their consequences. We experimented with forces that could destroy us. We nearly ended ourselves 17 times in our first 1,000 years in space. 17? Resonance 7 repeated. 17 confirmed near-extinction events, the forum confirmed. There may have been more that we do not count because we caught them earlier. We created unstable artificial intelligence. We accidentally opened dimensional rifts. We built weapons that could ignite atmospheres. We experimented with time manipulation and nearly created causality paradoxes. Every time we survived by luck or by the brilliance of desperate scientists working at the last possible moment. The forum's avatar dimmed slightly, as if remembering pain. We realized we were dangerous. Not dangerous like a predator. Dangerous like a child playing with fire in a room full of explosives. Our curiosity was greater than our caution. Our ability to create exceeded our wisdom to know what should not be created. So you requested isolation, Threxel said, understanding dawning. Yes, the forum agreed. When your ancestors offered us a council seat, we wanted to accept. But we knew what would happen. We would see your technologies and immediately start experimenting. We would trade with you and accidentally spread something catastrophic. We would explore your worlds and probably blow something up by mistake. We were not ready to be part of a galactic community. We needed time to grow up. The avatar gestured and the walls of the chamber changed. Images appeared showing human history. Cities rising and falling. Ships exploring the Sol system. Disasters averted by narrow margins. The isolation treaty was our idea, the forum continued. We asked you to contain us, not as punishment but as protection. Protection for you and protection for ourselves. We needed 3,000 years to develop ethical frameworks that could keep pace with our technological advancement. We needed time to build safeguards, to establish laws, to create systems that would prevent us from destroying everything. And did you succeed? Philextel asked quietly. The forum was silent for a moment. Partially. We are better than we were. We have strict protocols now. Every experiment must pass safety reviews. Every new technology is tested exhaustively. We have learned patience, though it does not come naturally to us. But we are still human. We still see problems and immediately want to fix them. We still discover new frontiers and ache to explore them. We still have ideas that could remake reality itself. Images flowed across the walls. The delegates watched in growing horror as the forum showed them current human projects. There was a team trying to create stable wormholes for instant travel. They had succeeded 17 times. Each success had lasted between 3 and 40 seconds before the wormhole destabilized. The 18th attempt was scheduled for next month. There was a group working on stellar engineering trying to extend the life of stars. They had test subjects, actual stars in nearby systems where they were experimenting with controlled fusion manipulation. Early results were promising, though one star had briefly flared to 3 times its normal brightness before they corrected the problem. There was a project dedicated to creating artificial universes in laboratory conditions. They had not succeeded yet, but the forum noted they were getting closer. The ethical debates about this project had been ongoing for 400 years. You are insane, a delegate whispered. No, the forum said gently. We are human. This is what we do. We see the impossible and try to make it possible. We find the boundaries of reality and push against them. We cannot help it. It is fundamental to our nature, Threxel found his voice. Why are you telling us this? You could have hidden it. Let us believe you were peaceful and quiet. Because you dissolved our council membership, the forum explained. You removed the isolation treaty. Legally, we are now free to expand beyond our system, free to explore, free to experiment without restrictions. And that terrifies us. The avatar moved closer to Threxel. Its face, though made of light, showed genuine fear. Ambassador, do you understand what we are saying? For 3,000 years, we kept our promises. We stayed in our system. We did not expand. We did not contact you. We maintained the isolation because we agreed it was necessary. We constrained ourselves because we knew what would happen if we did not. But now the treaty is void. Now there are no legal restrictions on our activities. Threxel felt ice in his blood. What are you saying? We are saying that we need you, the forum said simply. We need the council. We need oversight. We need someone outside ourselves to tell us when we are going too far, because we cannot always tell from the inside. We are asking you to help us stay sane. The delegates looked at each other in confusion. A species as advanced as humanity, asking for help from them? We have already drafted a proposal, the forum continued. New treaty terms. Earth will rejoin the council with a full founder's seat. We will share our technology, help defend against external threats, and participate in galactic governance. In exchange, we want the council to establish oversight committees, safety councils, review boards, restrictions on our research. You want us to restrict you? President 7 asked, confused. Yes, the forum said firmly. We want laws. Not laws imposed on us, but laws we are asking you to enforce. We want you to review our dangerous experiments. We want you to tell us when a project should not proceed. We want the Council to help us maintain the ethical frameworks we have built, because we know our nature. Give us 500 years without oversight, and we will probably break something fundamental about reality. Not because we are evil, but because we will get curious and forget to be careful. Silith's colors shifted to something like understanding. You are asking us to be your conscience. In a sense, yes, the forum agreed. You are species who have learned patience over millions of years, who have built civilizations on stability and caution, who understand that some doors should remain closed. We need that perspective because we are still young and reckless compared to you. We need you to remind us that just because we can do something does not mean we should. The avatar gestured again. The walls showed images of human children playing, humans laughing, humans working together on vast projects. We are not monsters, the forum said softly. We do not want to hurt anyone. We do not want to break the galaxy. But we are dangerous in our enthusiasm, in our curiosity, in our desperate need to push forward. 3,000 years ago, we isolated ourselves because we knew this about ourselves. Now we are asking you to help us stay isolated in a way, to give us structure and accountability, Threxel thought carefully. This was not what he expected. He had come prepared to negotiate with an enemy or to discover a dangerous threat. Instead, he found a species that was genuinely terrified of its own capabilities. What if we refuse? He asked. What if we vote to maintain the dissolved membership? The forum's avatar dimmed. Then we will do our best to constrain ourselves. We will establish our own oversight systems, our own rules, our own restrictions. But history suggests we will eventually fail. We will become excited about a project and convince ourselves the risk is acceptable. We will push too far because no one was there to tell us to stop. And when we realize our mistake, it may be too late. The emergency council session was the largest in recorded history. Every species sent representatives. Every world wanted a voice in this decision. The chamber on Axion Prime had never been so full, so tense, so alive with fear and possibility. Threxel stood before them, his scales still dull from stress. He had not slept properly since returning from Earth 3 days ago. None of the delegation had. They had spent every moment since reviewing what they had seen, trying to make sense of it, trying to decide what to recommend. Honored delegates, he began, his voice hoarse. I will be direct. Humanity is the most dangerous species in the galaxy, not because they are aggressive or cruel, but because they are brilliant and reckless and fundamentally unable to leave well enough alone. After seeing what they have become, I understand why they requested isolation 3,000 cycles ago. What I do not understand is why we were foolish enough to release them from it. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Several delegates looked ready to panic. However, Threxel continued, raising his voice, I also understand something else now. Humanity knows what they are. They are not blind to their own danger. In fact, they see it more clearly than we do, and they are asking us for help. He activated the display showing footage from the forum station. The delegates watched in silence as the human collective explained their proposal. When it finished, the chamber erupted in debate. They want us to restrict them? A Xinthian merchant asked incredulously. Why would any species voluntarily accept limitations on their own power? Silith rose, her colors showing confidence for the first time in weeks. Because they have wisdom that we lack. They understand that power without constraint leads to catastrophe. My ancestors saw this in them 3,000 years ago. They saw a species that learned from failures, that acknowledged its own weaknesses. Now humanity is offering us the opportunity to be part of their restraint system. But can we trust them? Resonance 7 asked. What if this is a trick? What if they are simply trying to make us feel safe while they prepare for conquest? Bezektel floated forward in his containment sphere. If humanity wanted conquest, we would already be conquered. They have technology we cannot comprehend. They are converting planets into machines, experimenting with fundamental forces of reality. If they wanted to destroy us, they would not need to ask permission first. But the risk, a delegate protested. If we accept their proposal, we become responsible for overseeing their research. What if we make a mistake? What if we approve something that should not be approved? That is precisely why they want multiple species involved, Threxel explained. Their proposal includes creating a dedicated oversight council with representatives from 50 different species. Every major experiment would require majority approval. They are not asking for one supervisor, they are asking for collective wisdom. Another delegate, a young harmonic named Clarity 9, spoke up. I have reviewed their technological achievements. Some of their projects could benefit the entire galaxy. Their power generation methods could solve energy crises on thousands of worlds. Their medical advances could cure diseases we thought incurable. Their terraforming techniques could make dead worlds habitable. Should we not at least consider what they offer? At what cost? Someone challenged. They admitted they nearly destroyed themselves 17 times. What happens when it is 18? What happens when they make a mistake that we cannot fix? The forum's avatar appeared in holographic form, transmitted from the Sol system. It had been given permission to address the council directly. Honored delegates, the avatar said, its voice gentle. We understand your fear. We share it. That is why we are making this proposal. You ask what happens when we make a mistake. The answer is that mistakes will happen. We are not perfect. We will fail, probably many times. But with your oversight, those failures can be caught earlier, contained faster, prevented more often. You are asking us to trust you, Clarity 9 said. No, the forum corrected. We are asking you to trust yourselves. To trust that your collective wisdom can guide our collective curiosity. We are not asking you to believe we will never fail. We are asking you to help ensure that when we fail, it does not destroy everything. Threxel watched the faces around him. He saw fear, yes, but also thoughtfulness. The council had always been about cooperation, about different species bringing different strengths to common challenges. Perhaps this was simply an extreme version of that principle. I have a question, Silith said. What happens if we refuse? If we vote to maintain the dissolved membership and keep you isolated? The forum's avatar dimmed slightly. Then we will respect your decision. We will establish our own internal oversight systems and do our best to remain contained. But we cannot promise it will be enough. We know our own nature. Eventually, probably within a few centuries, our enthusiasm will overcome our caution. We will convince ourselves that some experiment is safe when it is not. And the galaxy will pay the price for our mistake. That sounds like a threat, a delegate accused. It is not a threat, the forum said sadly. It is a prediction based on 3,000 years of human history. We are telling you what will happen not because we want it to happen, but because we are trying desperately to prevent it. We are offering you influence over the galaxy's most dangerous species. If you refuse, that species will eventually become dangerous not by choice but by nature. The vote was called. It would be the most important decision the council had ever made. One by one, species cast their votes. The Kelvathi voted yes immediately, their ancient files giving them context others lacked. The Chromath voted yes after long deliberation. The Harmonics debated for hours before agreeing. The Vryn hegemony, led by Threxel, voted yes. We open this door, he said. It is our responsibility to ensure it remains controlled. When the final tally came, the result was overwhelming. Humanity's membership would be reinstated, but under unprecedented conditions, Earth would receive its founder's seat again. But around that seat would be built the largest bureaucratic structure in Council history. 50 species would form the Terran Oversight Committee. Every experiment classified as dangerous would require review. Every new technology would need safety analysis. Every expansion plan would need approval. Humanity accepted these terms immediately. In fact, they offered to make them even stricter. The treaty was signed 3 weeks later. The ceremony took place on Axion Prime, in the great chamber where the empty seat had sat for 3,000 years. Threxel watched as human delegates entered for the first time. They were baseline humans, chosen specifically because the forum thought enhanced humans might make other species uncomfortable. They looked ordinary, small actually, compared to many council species. Fragile, but Threxel knew what those fragile-looking beings were capable of. He had seen their worlds transformed. He had witnessed technology that bent reality itself. The lead human delegate was Captain Sarah Chen. She approached the founder's seat slowly, almost reverently. She placed one hand on the carved metal. On behalf of humanity, she said quietly, we accept the responsibilities and restrictions of council membership. We thank you for your trust and for your willingness to help us be better than we would be alone. She sat down. For the first time in 3,000 years, Earth's seat was filled. The council chamber erupted in applause, but it was nervous applause. Everyone present understood what had just happened. They had not gained a member. They had accepted guardianship of the galaxy's most dangerous child. Later, in a private meeting, Threxel spoke with Chen over drinks. He had chosen alcohol strong enough to affect his Vrin metabolism. He needed it. "Tell me honestly," he said. "Did you plan this? Did you isolate yourselves knowing we would eventually release you, forcing us to accept oversight responsibilities?" Chen laughed. "Ambassador, we are reckless and curious, but we are not that clever. We isolated ourselves because we were terrified of what we might do. The fact that you released us was not part of any plan. It was a fortunate mistake." "Fortunate?" Threxel asked. "Yes," Chen said seriously. "For 3,000 years we constrained ourselves through sheer willpower. Through laws we enforced on ourselves. It worked, mostly, but it was exhausting. Every generation had to reaffirm the commitment. Every council had to resist the temptation to just take a quick look at what was beyond our borders. We needed external structure. You gave it to us." She sipped her own drink and stared out at the stars visible through the station's transparent walls. "Do you know what the most human thing about us is?" she asked. "It is not our curiosity or our inventiveness. It is our ability to recognize our own flaws and ask for help fixing them. We are dangerous, yes, but we know it. And that self-awareness might be what saves us all." Threxel considered this. Perhaps she was right. Perhaps a species that understood its own danger was less frightening than one that did not. "What happens now?" he asked. Chen smiled. "Now we get to work. We have about 3,000 experiments queued up waiting for safety review. We have terraforming proposals for 17 worlds. We have a new wormhole test scheduled for next month that the Oversight Committee will need to evaluate. We have so much to do, so much to share. It will be wonderful.